Most people know the songs. Millions have danced to them. They have been played at weddings, parties, and family gatherings for almost 50 years. But the man who helped create those unforgettable hits has always stayed in the background. Now, at 78 years old, Benny Andersson has shared thoughts that finally confirm what many fans believed all along. Behind the fame, the awards, and the record-breaking success was a man who never wanted to chase celebrity. He only wanted to make music that would last forever. And that simple truth changes the way we see his incredible journey. For years, Benny Andersson was known as the quiet genius of ABBA. While the world focused on sold-out concerts, chart-topping songs, and the personal lives of the band members, Benny rarely searched for the spotlight. Instead, he let the music speak for him. In interviews over the years with trusted outlets like the BBC, Rolling Stone, and The Guardian, along with the documentary ABBA, Against the Odds, Benny has often returned to the same idea. Success can disappear overnight. Fame can fade. But a great song can live for generations. That belief shaped every choice he made. But before we dive deeper, here's something I'd love to hear from you. If you had the choice between living a famous life or leaving behind work that people would remember forever, which would you choose? Let me know in the comments. To many people, Benny looked like the calm one. The man sitting behind the piano with a small smile while the rest of the world celebrated around him. But appearances can be misleading. Behind that calm face were years of pressure, heartbreak, impossible expectations, and difficult choices that almost no one saw. And perhaps that is why his recent reflections have touched so many fans. They seem to confirm what people suspected for decades. Benny was never trying to become a superstar. He was trying to become something much harder to be, a true musician whose work could outlive him. But that remarkable journey didn't begin on the world's biggest stages. It started with a young boy in Sweden who fell in love with a piano long before anyone had ever heard the name ABBA. And what happened during those early years would quietly shape one of the greatest music stories ever told. Long before sold-out arenas and global fame, Benny Andersson's world was much smaller. He was born in Stockholm, Sweden, in December 1946. Music was already part of his family. His father and grandfather loved to play traditional Swedish folk music, and their home was often filled with songs instead of silence. When Benny was just a little boy, he watched them play with complete attention. Before long, they were teaching him simple tunes on a piano. He didn't see music as homework. Felt like play. Every new melody made him want to learn another one. That love only grew stronger. By the time he was a teenager, Benny could spend hours sitting at the piano, trying different chords and creating little melodies of his own. He wasn't dreaming about becoming famous. He simply loved discovering how music could make people feel happy, sad, excited, or hopeful. But one unexpected opportunity was about to change everything. In the early 1960s, Benny joined a popular Swedish rock group called the Stars. The band quickly became one of Sweden's biggest acts, often compared to the British groups that were taking over Europe at the time. Suddenly, Benny wasn't just practicing at home anymore. He was performing in front of thousands of screaming fans. The success was exciting, but it also taught him an important lesson. Crowds came and went. Popular songs climbed the charts and then disappeared. What lasted were the songs people kept singing years later. Even then, Benny was thinking less like a performer and more like a songwriter. And that quiet way of thinking would soon lead him to someone who shared the very same dream. That person was Björn Ulvaeus. The two first met in the mid-1960s while their bands were touring. They came from different groups, but they connected almost immediately. Both loved writing songs. Both enjoyed experimenting with melodies. And both believed that a great song could cross language, culture, and time. Before long, they began writing together. Nobody could have guessed how important that partnership would become. At first, they were simply two young musicians trying new ideas. Some worked well, others didn't. But each song taught them something new. They listened carefully to each other, changed lyrics, adjusted melodies, and searched for the perfect sound. Instead of competing, they made each other better. Then life added another surprise. Björn fell in love with Agnetha Falskog. Around the same time, Benny began a relationship with Annie Frid Lyngstad, better known as Frida. Now there were 4 talented musicians spending more and more time together. At first, nobody planned to create one of the biggest pop groups in history. They simply enjoyed making music. But every rehearsal revealed something special. Benny and Bjorn could build unforgettable melodies. Agnetha and Frida brought 2 very different voices that blended in a way few singers ever could. Together, they created a sound that felt fresh, emotional, and impossible to ignore. Still, success was far from guaranteed. Sweden was a small country, and breaking into the international music world seemed almost impossible. Many talented artists had tried before. Most failed. Yet Benny refused to give up. He believed that if the songs were strong enough, people would listen no matter where they lived. That belief would soon face its biggest test. A single performance on an international stage was about to change not only Benny's life, but the future of pop music itself. And when the world finally heard the name ABBA, nothing would ever be the same. In 1974, everything came down to one performance. The 4 musicians traveled to England for the Eurovision Song Contest. They stood on stage wearing bright, eye-catching costumes. Their song was called Waterloo. It sounded fresh, energetic, and completely different from many of the other entries. Some people thought they looked too unusual to win. Others believed singing upbeat pop music was a risky choice. But Benny trusted the music. When the final votes were announced, the group had won. Overnight, ABBA became a name the world would never forget. According to Eurovision records and later interviews with the band, that victory opened doors they had only dreamed about. But winning Eurovision was only the beginning. Back in the studio, Benny and Bjorn worked tirelessly on new songs. Their writing process was almost like solving a puzzle. Benny often created the melody first, sitting at the piano for hours until every note felt right. Bjorn then helped shape the lyrics, while Agnetha and Frida added harmonies that gave each song its emotional power. Nothing was rushed. If a melody didn't feel perfect, Benny kept working. If one small part sounded weak, he rewrote it. Friends and producers have often described him as calm but incredibly demanding when it came to quality. He believed listeners could feel the difference between a good song and a timeless one. That attention to detail soon paid off. One hit followed another. Mamma Mia, Fernando, Dancing Queen, Knowing Me, Knowing You, Take a Chance on Me. Each release seemed bigger than the last. Radio stations around the world played their music almost non-stop. Fans packed concerts across Europe, Australia, North America, and beyond. Yet Benny rarely acted like a superstar. While cameras focused on the singers and flashing lights, he was usually behind the piano, thinking about the next melody instead of the next headline. In later interviews, he admitted that songwriting always brought him more joy than being famous. Creating something from nothing was the real reward. But there was another side to this incredible success. The schedule became exhausting. Recording sessions stretched late into the night. International tours kept them away from home for long periods. Every new album came with even greater expectations. The world wanted another hit and then another. Behind the smiles, the pressure kept growing. Fans saw 4 happy faces standing together. They didn't see the long flights, the endless interviews, or the emotional strain that came with living under constant public attention. Every decision was watched. Every rumor became news. Even their personal relationships became part of the story. And those relationships were beginning to change. First, Bjorn and Agnetha's marriage started to fall apart. Not long afterward, Benny and Frida also faced serious struggles in their own relationship. Imagine trying to heal a broken heart while millions of people expected you to stand on stage smiling every night. It was one of the hardest challenges any band could face. Before we reveal how those personal heartbreaks pushed ABBA toward the edge of breaking apart, take a second to subscribe. Stories like this often go far beyond the headlines, uncovering the moments that shaped history but many people never hear about. The next chapter would test Benny more than any hit song or sold-out concert ever could. The music was still beautiful. The crowds were still cheering. But behind the curtain, the foundation of ABBA was beginning to crack, and nobody outside the group truly understood how close everything was to changing forever. From the outside, ABBA looked unstoppable. Their records were selling by the millions. Fans waited for every new song. Concert halls filled in minutes. To the world, the four members seemed to have everything anyone could dream of. But behind closed doors, life was becoming harder with every passing year. The first major shock came when Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Fältskog ended their marriage in 1980. Newspapers everywhere wondered if this would be the end of ABBA. Many bands had broken apart over far smaller problems. Instead, they kept working. It wasn't easy. Imagine writing love songs with someone you had just divorced. Yet Benny often spoke about the importance of putting the music first. The group remained professional, even when emotions were running high. Still, another storm was already on the way. In 1981, Benny and Anni-Frid Lyngstad, known to fans as Frida, also separated. Now both couples in ABBA had gone through painful breakups. The chemistry that once seemed effortless was becoming much harder to hold together. And yet, something surprising happened. Instead of hiding those emotions, Benny and Björn poured many of them into their songwriting. Fans and music critics have long pointed to songs like The Winner Takes It All and later tracks on The Visitors as carrying a deeper emotional weight. While the band has explained that not every lyric was autobiographical, real-life experiences clearly influenced the feelings behind the music. The songs became more mature. They became more honest. And many people believe that is why they still touch listeners today. But even great songs could not erase the growing distance between the four members. By late 1982, ABBA quietly stepped away from recording together. There was no dramatic farewell concert. No official announcement saying the band had ended forever. They simply stopped making new music as a group. That silence lasted far longer than anyone expected. As the years passed, offers for a reunion became almost unbelievable. According to multiple media reports and comments from the band, promoters were willing to pay enormous sums of money for just one performance. Many people wondered how anyone could say no. Benny's answer was remarkably simple. If the music wasn't right, there was no reason to come back. For him, ABBA had never been about collecting one more paycheck or breaking one more record. It had always been about creating songs that deserved to exist. Without that spark, he believed a reunion would disappoint both the band and the fans. That decision surprised many people, but it also confirmed something longtime fans had noticed for years. Benny cared more about the work than the spotlight. Instead of chasing old success, he kept moving forward. He wrote musicals, including the internationally successful Chess with Björn Ulvaeus and lyricist Tim Rice. Later, the pair created Kristina Fran de Vemela, one of Sweden's most celebrated musicals. Benny also formed the Benny Andersson's Orchestra, returning to the Swedish folk music he had loved since childhood. Music was never just a career. It was the language through which he understood the world. If you're watching this and you're going through a difficult season in your own life, Benny's story carries a powerful reminder. Success doesn't protect anyone from heartbreak. But heartbreak doesn't have to be the end of your story.